Well, this is round 2 or 3, and it's still going to be a little jarring for you guys to hear my voice right off the bat. But you know what? You're just going to have to deal with it. Steele left us high and dry. He doesn't care about us anymore. But don't worry. We've got friends, and we're plugging, and we're playing, and we've got very, very special guests. And one of them's here with us today. So you guys stay tuned after the intro. I'll drop it.
As there's a drive in a deep left field by Castellanos, it will be.
Oh man, it's 8 o'clock.
And so that'll make it a.
I don't need the spotlight. I shine just fine.
Hi, I'm Karma, and yes, I am a bitch.
Brav Bros.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Brav Bros, your favorite show from the bros for everybody, for whoever wants to listen. I'm your co-host, Shooter Magooter. Steele left us all high and dry, but don't you worry. I've got a very, very special guest to fill in, and we're not going to skip a beat. It's Ryan Bailey. What's going on, Ryan?
I'm Steele's illegitimate cousin, Ryan, and I have two bad tattoos, and I'm not as good of a lifter as Steele, but I'm so happy to be here, and so I apologize in advance. I will never be able to even attempt to fill Steele's shoes, but I'll try to get through this today for you guys.
I suspect that a lot of the lifting thing is fake. I've seen some of the dumbbells that he uses. He's actually he wants to make sure that he presents himself as this gritty, northeast of the country kind of guy. He's actually from LA, bred and true, and all of his dumbbells are styrofoam. So, you didn't hear it from me. No. The muscles I heard are fake too. So don't you worry. The tattoos might be fake too. I'm going to go over whenever the hell he comes back from wherever the hell he is. I'm going to go over and just see what's Sharpie and what's not.
Well, I'll throw even one more out there is that he didn't just recently get into Bravo in the last 7 years. He's been into Bravo since day one. He actually has watched every one of these shows since the first day Orange County premiered. And he's been acting like this is something he came later to him in life.
Steele is the male version of Raquel Levis. He has watched all of these shows a billion times, and he's actually tried to snake his way in there. So there's some Easter eggs out there. If you go back and listen to our episodes, he's dropped a hint here or there that that's what he's doing.
Yeah, this is called Steele of all.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, I figured, we're missing some things here and there. We've got some gaps to fill, but the best way to do it, let's just have a good free-form recap with Ryan, listen to what's going on, and we get a little different perspective too, because I'm tired of hearing Steele's perspective. I get to hear somebody else, and we'll just kind of hit a bunch of different things. So where do you want to start? I know where you are with your roots and everything. What do you think about the new VPR? Where are you with that?
I was at an interesting place this week because I think I was in the minority where the thing was I didn't mind this at all, except that they called it Vanderpump Rules. If this show was called something completely different, I think we would be more apt to accept it. And I mean, I hate to break it to people. I live in Los Angeles. I lived here for decades now. Is that there's a lot of thirsty people here. It's like the OG Vanderpump crew are not the only friend group thirsty people. So I have not minded it at all. And I was like, okay, there's a lot of room to play here. The only issue I have, and I think it is becoming a little glaring in these later episodes, is that the people with the actual friend group that have worked at this restaurant for a couple of years, you can really sense that. And I think Natalie's fantastic. But then there are the people that are cast, and they're not bad people, like Angelica, Chris, Jason. They're great. But there is that natural thing where we're watching, just like the Roni reboot, we're watching them form a relationship while we actually get to know them instead of hitting the ground running. So they were able to hit the ground running with those people that already knew each other. But I think that is now coming up. And I mean, I don't know if that's 2026 or just to see how we've grown. But we finally have an incest storyline on Bravo. And I couldn't be prouder of everybody involved. I mean, the fact that they threw out incest, and they're like, I mean, that is wild, and we are so desensitized. Where I was like, yeah, of course, incest. Why wouldn't we talk about incest on Bravo? Why?
Why is this the first time that we've talked about incest on Bravo? Why have there not been any inclination so far that there might be something incestuous going on?
I'm sure it's been there. We just have never had the bravery to talk about it. So, I mean, I will say I don't seem to passionately dislike it as much as some other people do. And I do like the vibe of they're in crappy apartments again. You know, we're not in like modern farmhouses in the valley. I like that. I even like that Angelica was on Watch What Happens Live this week, and she was talking about we're not famous. None of us have even gotten 10,000 followers from this. Like, is the fame in the room with us? And I like that. I like that we're not making these people superstars right out of the gate because. I mean, I don't know. I think this will definitely get a second season, obviously. I'll be curious. What do you think?
I've been enjoying it, but I feel like it's one of those shows where, like you said, there's a good core going on there, and I feel like they filled in the gaps with those Chris's and Jasons and Angelicas, and you just kind of have to see what you have. But you've got Marcus, Venus, Natalie, Demi, who I've kind of coined as Demi Madrigal because she's not really going to be on the show. She's just going to be the only worker that Lisa relies on.
Yeah, so Peter's like the ghost of Christmas future for Demi, and he's right there, and they won't allow him on camera. So it's great. That's your future.
Well, that was the best thing, too, that happened within the last week is just like you said, you've got these new people who are accustomed to reality TV, like Chris, who's been on 3 different shows, and he's trying to find his fit. He gets cast, goes into VPR, and immediately says he doesn't know who Katie Maloney is. And there's just an absolute shitstorm going on where he's like, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm just trying to keep it real. You're not trying to keep it real. You've been on a bunch of shows. You may have found your fit somewhere in here, but I do worry that there's people like that who are very accustomed. Now, the good thing that I'm looking forward to, they're so dumb. They really are. And I mean that very nicely. And I mean that like endearingly. They are very stupid. So I don't see them really picking things up. And Angelica kind of did a bit of a turn when she was on Watch What Happens Live. She's been a little bit chaotic, a little crazy, which is good for the show, of course. But when she gets to Watch What Happens Live, it seems like she's learned a little bit, which I do want some semblance of I can learn from my mistakes. And I understand that I am under a microscope of some sorts. But I do want them to be poor. I want them to be stupid. I want them to make terrible decisions.
Well, the good news to everybody is that Bravo, especially in the first season, pays them zilch. So nobody is making money off of. I mean, do not worry, folks. Nobody is making money in terms of the cast off this show right now.
No, and we haven't gotten to the point, which has been a huge issue for me recently, where they're pushing their own businesses. Like nobody's starting up a small business right away. The closest we've gotten is Marcus is becoming a DJ, which quickly kind of went away. I mean, it seems like Lisa was like, okay, yeah, you can do Tuesdays. We'll see how that goes. It's like, all right, Lisa, let's not play this card game again.
It's like, yeah, I would let DJ James Kennedy and Marcus fighting over for See You Next Tuesday. I will say, I think this is, I mean, this is a positive. I really dislike Marcus. Marcus is one of my least favorite types of people. I don't know if that's how he is in real life, but he obviously does not want to be with his girlfriend. I mean, like, it is so obvious he doesn't want to be with his girlfriend, and I do believe they're still together. So there's that misery, and that he throws her under the bus every chance he gets. He complains to everybody about how much he doesn't like her, and then then they're still together. That is always an interesting dynamic, and I enjoy seeing it here. And then he cries over Venus not being his friend, even though there's reasons why Venus doesn't want to be his friend. I think he's a great character, but my God, I dislike that type of character.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely understand that. But I do also enjoy it because even going into the wine country with the Women in Wine event that they had, he is so noticeably hammered when they're all sitting in the hot tub. And I feel like it's a blast from the past. Anytime that we watch any of these new shows, everybody's so quick to be like, I have to worry about my own self-image. I can't get too drunk on camera. I can't do this. I can't make terrible mistakes. I get the vibe from a lot of this crew that they are going to get very drunk and they are going to make terrible mistakes, i.e. cheating on each other or hooking up within the restaurant or maybe going a little bit further. I just want to see how that plays out because that's the type of chaos that we loved in the past. And I feel like we've gotten away from that. And we can really only really do that with these new people, with people who haven't been on a show before, with people that haven't made it big before. This is how they're going to do it.
And I think that could be a great strength if they really do lean into that. You know, they obviously stepped far away from nostalgia, which I thought was excellent. I wish, in retrospect, I wish they did change the theme song just a little bit, just to, because that's the only thing that really ties it. Of course, Sir. And also, Lisa, if you want this show to be successful, you're going to have to sleep with one of these young guys. I mean, that's the only way. You've got to. No, I mean, I think that this show can work. And I do think it's going to have a second season regardless of numbers. numbers, and I think streaming it does well. And I always talk about on my show, the intellectual property. It's a very, the name recognition, the brand alone is worth so much money, is that, they could just sit there and stare at the screen for an hour and they could still charge a very high ad revenue rate. So it's going to be financially profitable, even if we're all crapping on it. So my thing is, like, can you build not even a better boat, but just a boat that sails? And usually I will say, I think there are elements of this that I'm even enjoying more than Next Gen NYC. I think Next Gen NYC had, the Nepo baby element to it. So I think it's, to me, neck and neck with that show. And I'm probably going to get crap for saying that.
Yeah, you're probably going to get crap for saying that. But I do think that going on to another show that's just like that, which would be Southern Hospitality, I think Southern Hospitality is head and shoulders above both right now. And they could get there. I definitely think they can get there.
Hospitality is entering its 4th season, and each season they've gotten better. This is why it's like you invest in people, right? Like whether, or people listening here, you invested in the Bra Bros. You now show up every day, or when, you invest in the people that you believe in. And because one day it could really take off if all the right elements are there. I'm not super into sports, but it's like, your favorite sports team, if they have a bad season, you're not going to stop being their fan. It's like you're going to hope the next season is better. And I think that's the thing, is you're investing when things really get insane, when they have a Scandival type level event. That relationship is going to be so formed by that point, you're going to see fireworks. Yeah,
and using the sports comparison, especially, you do need those seasons. We call them rebuilding seasons. We call them that. When you get to a point, and I'll probably talk about this later because it really irritates me, but when you get to a point where you're OC and you're bringing back the same people every year and it's not getting any better, as a sports fan, you're going to look at that team and say, I don't expect much from you, because you're bringing back the same people that we want you to change out, and they're not changing anybody out. They're just bringing in, they're bringing in a high profile free agent in Vicky and throwing her into the mix to see if maybe she can stir things up and make the team better, but it might not work out. And if it doesn't work out, what are you going to do? A lot of times I feel like, and look, Bravo took a chance with Roni. They did a full reboot. I think that's a little bit different than VPR. I agree with you. They should have changed it maybe to, like what they're doing with the Valley, where they have just different offshoots of the Valley. They've got, Persian style. They've got the original. I wouldn't be surprised if they have another one with all the people living in the Valley.
From my understanding, I've been told that there will be different iterations of the Valley, and not all just in California. So.
Oh, I like that. So yeah, and that's a good way to do it, because you've got these people, especially from shows that are a younger generation, like Summer House. They're doing it within the city. You've got Southern Charm with Southern Hospitality right at its heels. You can do that. You can pick and choose different things. And if you want to franchise a new thing called the Valley, go for it. Take a shot, because I'm all for Bravo taking a shot and trying something different, especially when they're still trying to figure out what to do with their Housewives franchise, because it's been on a downturn. There's a couple of really good shows, of course, but your big hitters aren't doing super well and they're not being well received. So they have to retool, and they can do that while focusing on the other shows.
Yeah, we bit with Housewives. We know how Housewives work. The audience is really savvy at this point. I was talking about this the other day. Like, we always know there's an inciting incident, and then there's going to be 4 conversations about the inciting incident with different friend groups. And then you're going to have the 2 people that had the inciting incident eventually having to have another conversation where they face off for a second time. Like, it's just like cut and paste. And I think the audience now demands something that's a little more than cut and paste. And, I think they'll get there, but it does seem like these other shows that are away from the Housewives franchise are able to have a little bit more artistic freedom. And I hope that they really lean into that, because I think, that's how you're going to, I know this sounds like silly, but this is how we make our living. That's how they're going to push the form, they're going to be able to expand, and they're going to be able to create something new that will hopefully have longevity past, the 20-year anniversary. But I will say, I was up late last night doing the recap for the final Salt Lake reunion. And I have to say, for somebody that likes Salt Lake as much as I have loved Salt Lake, I felt nothing by the end of the reunion, where I was like, okay, there are little elements I can pick out that I'm like, this is fascinating. This is fascinating. There's obviously a whole storyline that we're not seeing about production behind the scenes, whether you love Meredith or not. Meredith has a problem with production, and production has a problem with Meredith. We do not know, but I was like, that's the interesting story right there that's only hinted about. But other than that, I felt like I've seen Lisa yell. I've seen Meredith deflect. I've seen Heather push. I've seen all of these things before. And so I hated it too because I was so looking forward to it, and then I said to my audience, I was like, maybe I just don't like reunions because
that's what it is.
A lot for me.
Yeah, I think that's the big glaring issue that they have right now, especially with Housewives. The reunions do not do anything. And we talked about it years ago. They started doing this new mold where every reunion would have 3 parts. And we didn't need 3 parts for half of these shows because nothing would happen. But yet they look at the ratings for an OC, for Beverly Hills, for these shows that just do massively because the older generations are still watching them every single week. They don't care. They just look at the ratings. Now, when we get to reunions, nothing gets discussed. We don't talk about anything. And Salt Lake is a big problem with that because the whole season was
accountability. There's zero accountability. Nothing is ever answered on these shows. So if you're going to present this as an open, honest conversation about what we saw over the season, and if we're not going to get that open, honest conversation, what are we doing here? Because Shooter, you and me, we've talked about every episode at length the entire season. So I personally there's nothing I get except that I genuinely like most of these ladies and that it's funny for me to, then I have weird humor moments for me. But other than that, I'm not a lot. We even got the Bronwyn Todd thing got revealed in December. That wasn't a revelation for us.
That's a big problem too. I'm tired of hearing about news in the off season. All these people online, which yes, of course, you and I, we have to pick these things up. When we look at it on Twitter and we see a credible source reporting that these two got into a big fight, I'll use, I think it's Vicky and Portia on Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip.
Week. Yeah,
we'll use that as a good example. I want to see it play out on screen. I don't want to read it on Twitter. And I know that people are doing their jobs for clicks, but it's ruining the shows because what ends up happening is we see this on Twitter in December. The show comes out in May or June. We're watching. In the back of my brain, I know that that's going to happen at some point, and then maybe it doesn't play out. And if it doesn't play out, then why the hell did I spend any time thinking about it in December? And if it does, and it's not nearly as bad as what it was portrayed as, or if it's worse, then it's okay, I kind of wish that this was a surprise. I want to watch this for the first time, not remember something I read.
Of surprise on Bravo anymore. And I, you're talking about the 20th anniversary Ultimate Girls Road Trip thing that they're doing right now, which I was talking about as well, where I'm like, so they just said post whatever you want, Housewives. I know every function they're doing. I know where they're ending. They're ending at Bluestone Manor with Dorinda this week. I mean, I know all of these things already, and so it still will be fun to watch. But that element of surprise, and maybe that goes back to childhood, is there's something so amazing about being surprised, and maybe you can't surprise in the digital age, but they're not even trying. They're letting everybody post everything in that cast, and I almost now wonder, were they told to post everything? Were they trying to drum up some sort of underground excitement? And also, how silly is it that we're this deep into it? I like the casual listeners, what are you guys talking about? But
this is way more than just a recap. This is going to be a full breakdown of the whole Bravo sphere, but it's almost like the people that watch, a dramatized show, and I'll use Game of Thrones as an example. You've got the readers who read all the books online spoiling it. I can't wait for this to happen. And then you read about it and you're like, oh, fuck, that kind of just takes out the element of surprise. We have that problem in reality TV right now. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And like you said, maybe they are telling these women to go ahead and post whatever they want on their socials, which doesn't happen. Usually you'll see they've got their planned Instagram drop after an episode drops, and they'll put something out there and be like, wow, this was such a good night. And Summer House is a good example of that. You'll see West, Jesse, Kyle, whoever, they'll post after the episode releases. Here's what we did that night. Here's pictures from what we did that night. And I like that a lot better because it gives you a little bit more behind the scenes. And Bravo seems to have a wrap on that. But all this other information, Atlanta went over to Scotland. It's okay, that's okay. Fine, whatever. They went to Scotland. Great. I don't need to know what happens in Scotland until I watch it unfold on the screen. There's some things that they can't control. And Kyle and Amanda breaking up right before Summer House starts. It's the same thing as Paige and Craig breaking up. We're just going to end up watching this season we can see the cracks in the fault here. Not that Kyle and Amanda are the best example of that because we've seen the cracks in the fault for about 8 years now.
Sorry.
Wait, but at the same time,
Amanda?
But there's still going to be people that are watching and they're like, oh, this must have been the last straw. It's no, it's not the last straw, but I also don't want to watch it like that. I would much rather it. And again, you can't really time a breakup, but if they were to break up and they're very, very reality TV centric, they understand how this affects their lives, maybe just hold on to it for a little bit. You guys don't need to drop that news right before. Do it mid-season, do it a little bit later, and then it can try to add to the effect of it. But doing all of these news drops and stuff before the season starts is kind of stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to sometimes understand what the conversations are at Bravo HQ, and if there is like some sort of plan, or do they reach out to these people with storylines and make suggestions? Like, I do wonder how deeply it's thought out, because sometimes I've covered this for so long now that I'm like, we might be thinking about it harder than they're thinking about it. And
Which is a
I
problem.
don't,
Yeah.
well, but I also don't mean that as a slam. I don't mean that to do, but I do
No.
wonder in business, how it's approached over there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And I feel like the other thing is the mismatching production teams that they have for each show. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of cohesive effort on their part. They don't try to do the same thing, which a lot of production teams are really good, and they're very good at what they do, especially in editing. And a lot of them are just kind of falling to the wayside. And there's certain producers whose names we shouldn't know that we get to blame all the time when things go wrong. And I feel like that's been a huge point where we're watching this, or we'll hear some of the people on the show, and Southern Charm's a good example of that. They got rid of their producer last year because they weren't highlighting things. And Madison came out and said, I have this whole pajama line, and no one said anything about my pajama line. And yet here we are once again showing Trop Up. Here we are once again showing Craig sewing down south. But that changed a little bit here and there. And that's actually kind of funny thing that I pointed out this season. Craig and Austen opened a restaurant this year. Usually we would have gotten a whole reveal. We're having a big opening party. The whole cast posted pictures from the opening party after an episode. And I'm like, wait a minute. That wasn't this episode.
Austen is wearing the By the Way hat in this episode. And even Craig did a scene at By the Way like a couple episodes ago. And it is one of those things, because then I even get I'm like, wait, how do they hate each other so deeply, yet they keep going into business with each other, yet it's never highlighted on the show most of the time? So I get confused where I'm like, is this an act? Like, what is going on here? Because I don't know why you would keep going into business with somebody that that you're enemies with that person. And I think it is true. I think obviously they really wear on each other, but then I'm so curious about the business aspect, which I think would be a fascinating storyline as well. I mean, we already had, I thought it was great when they were just talking about Craig buying off Austen in the podcast. I'll give you 25 or 35 grand and buy you out of pillows and beer. I mean, I thought that was hysterical. But it leaves the audience very confused, because we can all see what's going on in their lives. And if you're not going to focus on it, then how are we supposed to say Austen isn't out there doing anything, which I think Craig says in this episode, or maybe it was in a mid-season trailer, you're not really doing anything with your life. Well, he's opening businesses with you. We just don't hear about him on the show.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point too. And I do think there is a little bit of give and take. I think there's a little bit of a play up when it comes to their relationship and how much they dislike each other, because they wouldn't have gotten into business. But watching Tom and Tom try to open trying to open that restaurant was some of the best TV that I've ever seen. With the two of them just bouncing ideas off of each other, Lisa getting pissed off, Greg just losing his fucking mind the entire season. That was really fun to watch. And then it ultimately failed. This isn't going to fail. So I do wonder what their actual role is. If they're just the faces of it, they invested in it, and then they're just completely taking a step back. Like, hey, we've got people who are running this restaurant. We're just going to show up here and there. That might be what they're doing, which makes a lot more sense. That way they don't have to sit down in meetings together. But for Craig to sit there and say, you haven't done anything for the last 5 years of your life. Okay. I mean, we get to see Austen's family. Austen looks like he's as close to a trust fund kid as possible. That's a beautiful house that his parents have. So he doesn't have to worry about these things. He's got Trop Up. It didn't really work out that well. Fine, whatever. But like you said, he's invested in a couple things here and there. He's got these things going on, which is okay, what do you mean? Craig, you were with Paige for those 5 years. You did a great job cleaning your act up. What are you going to do without her? I actually would have loved, and it would have been a bit of a low blow. But if Austen's response to that was, okay, well, what did you do for the last 5 years? Oh, never mind. It actually walked away and went to New York. And now you're just left fending for yourself. That would have been a great comeback, because then that would have actually put a spotlight on what Craig's behavior was for the last 5 years, which I feel like they're not talking about for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things left unsaid. And I thought it was great to end this episode with that fight with the four men. And, I just crack up every time we say that women are more emotional, when I'm like, I would argue the men of Bravo are more emotional. I mean, we have two of the best housewives on Southern Charm of all time, Austen and Craig. They both love gossip. Austen is more comfortable with a glass of wine, spinning yarns with all the ladies. He loves that stuff. The only problem is he loves that, but then he also loves to sleep with them. So it's not just he actually loves hanging with girls, but he also loves then sleeping with those girls. And I think that we see run into a lot of issues. But, weirdly enough, and I don't know if it was like changing producers, I still find this season so enjoyable. It's low level.
It is.
There's not a big overarching storyline except for maybe a love triangle with Craig and Sally, obviously. By the way, Sally Carson, thank you for your service. It's always great when you can really dislike a character and go, wow, that person really needs male validation. And that's, who knows? I don't know if that's the real life Sally or if that's just the edit, but my God, it's great to watch her. She's tearing Austen away from Audrey. I mean, this is great to me. I really love Southern Charm this season.
Yeah, and I feel like once you remove the morality of worrying about their own personal lives and just watching it unfold on TV, it's really enjoyable. Like, I went through a bit of a phase there with Craig where Craig was struggling. And it's like, okay, Craig, you just admitted to being an addict, but now you're back. I'm not going to Steele tends to hold that against him. I'm looking at it just from a pure entertainment value. Like, you know what? Go back and get everybody pissed off because you're out there just boozing it up and being a complete asshole. I don't really care that much about it. Same with Sally. I don't know what the hell to make of her, because she does all of these things that just cries for male validation, and it just cries a pick-me girl. And yet she'll go and hang out with Madison, and she'll just like let you in on this part of her life where she was engaged and she thought that she'd have all these things by now, much like Craig, much like Austen, much like Shep, as they've gone through everything. So she just kind of like gets thrown back into the fold. It's like, okay, share a little bit more about your personal life and maybe I won't judge you as much for the other things, because it makes for such great TV. But she did one of the most masterful things ever. She made Vanita interesting. She was able to bring Vanita out of her shell, and Vanita sat down with Madison and was like, yeah, I don't know. Sally made me fun. She made me drink at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday. It's like, is that all we needed? I don't know. Because we were asking for Vanita for like years, and she broke up with a guy last year and they didn't show anything. They showed us a 30-second snippet and we're like, well, that seems kind of interesting. And we don't have a whole lot going on here. Why didn't we see that? But in reality, it's like, okay, let's see some more from Vanita. She can be just as full of damage.
I do think it's interesting with Sally, too, is that she, this isn't the first time she's gone on a reality show. She was on The Bachelor. She left early. She was on Bachelor in Paradise. But I'm like, every reality show, she's almost chosen it. She's almost used it as a dating game, it as like potentially hooking up with a partner. And that seems to be, even in this week's episode, of seeing her family's, their new baby and like wanting a baby so much and wanting this. And you really see like this means so much to her that you can almost, you psychologically understand how she gets herself into these situations. And I do think Craig's hot tub is magical, so I will blame it a little bit on Craig's hot tub. But
fair,
then
as long as Corey's not there.
Yeah, I mean, the Austen thing is just wild to me because, she set her sights on Austen. Craig then came, set her sights on Craig. Now she's back to Austen. If you watch the midseason trailer, obviously they make out. And by the way, I put this out last weekend. Like, I think they're fully hooking up right now. Like, I mean, every sign, she's on Watch What Happens Live saying that they're one and the same, they're twins. And, he's just like.
They were out with Madison and Brett last week when they went out with the baby and stuff and took a bunch of pictures together. It was very coupley.
I mean, which, by the way, but like also, I think Sally does this amazing job that I think is probably real of really shining a spotlight on the person that she likes, and everything that person does is amazing. And I would imagine if you are the person that is getting that light shined, if it must feel amazing. Like, Austen must be like, wow. But I will say, even regardless, Sally or anybody, I still don't think Austen is in a place that he will be able to commit to somebody for more than a year or two still. I think too much for Bravo men that gets thrown at them for him to ever. I mean, I think he's leaning more Shep than he is Craig at this point.
I think that's fair too. And we're actually seeing Shep sort of go through, at least like in Shep's own way, a bit of a metamorphosis where he's somewhat understanding. It's just old. He's just getting up there, and too many people are pointing at him and asking what the hell's going on, where he hasn't had that in the past. But he's said a couple of things here and there that makes me think like he's trying to figure this out for the first time in forever, instead of, I don't know, I really know what I'm going to do with Taylor. And then he's in Charlotte and he's flirting with a bunch of girls. And he's like, well, I don't really want to be with Taylor because I can still do this. He might be hitting a point where he just has to find somebody in his own economic bracket where he can go traveling, and then kind of figure things out. And if he ends up having kids in a house and everything, great. If not, he doesn't. So he seems to be in a better place, at least this year. But with Craig in particular, because he's just so polarizing this year, because he can't really figure out what's going on. But with his dating life, you know exactly what's going to happen. You see it with Sally almost right off jump, like, okay, Vanita clocks it. He's going to just walk you like a dog and then get rid of you as soon as something better comes along. Now he's with Charlie. That's not going to work out either. But we still have to watch this unfold and how this is actually going to play out. And we know how it's going to end, but I'm still going to have so much enjoyment watching them work through the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's, like I said, it's like really low level entertainment where I don't, it's like I know what's going to happen, but at the same time, I'm going to enjoy watching it unfold. And with Craig, he's so fun. Craig is just so funny because Craig knows that, like, if he plays his cards right, he can continue to be a brand. It's like he had his, and not that it's this thought out, but he thought his brand was him and Paige. And now he realizes he himself is a brand. And, like, just don't slip up. Keep pushing, dress nicely, bring gifts to parties, do everything that is right, but he still slips up and just the just doing therapy with ChatGPT and doing, there are these things where it's like, man, I love the thought. I love trying to work on yourself. But at the same time, you got to also realize, with therapy, ChatGPT might be a good place to start, but also a real therapist is a great place to finish, and you.
Well, he said that. He said that he was doing therapy and he was meeting, but he didn't expand. He's definitely lying. And he was talking about ChatGPT. Like, that's the funniest thing is he doesn't realize when he contradicts himself.
He goes, you made me go back to my therapist, man. I'm like, your computer? He went back to his computer? What?
The other part of that is, and we haven't seen a lot of him in the last 2 episodes even, but Whitner being there, just trying to feel it out and figure out everything that's going on, sitting with Craig while Craig is discussing talking to ChatGPT and crying at ChatGPT's responses on how he's actually acting. Whitner's like, yeah, man, I get it. Like, he's in the same boat I am. My engagement broke up 4 years ago, and I haven't gotten over it. It's like, all right, Whitner, there might be more there for us to uncover, for us to really figure out what the fuck's going on with you. But for you to sit there and tell Craig that he's being completely rational by going through all of this is very funny.
Well, Whitner is an interesting guy, because Charlie and Sally said, I think it was on Watch What Happens Live, where they said, well, and he was like, why aren't you into Whitner? And he's like, oh, you'll see. And I had Molly O'Connell on the show, and I think we're putting that out this weekend. And I was like, what's up with Whitner? And she's like, hey, I actually can report he's a great guy. I don't know what that was about. I thought that was a little weird. So I'm like, what did Whitner do that is so bizarre and so weird? Because, by the way, I'm apt to believe it. It's Charleston, like everybody, and everybody has skeletons in their closet. But, is Whitner a freak? What's going on?
Who the hell knows exactly what's going on? If I had to guess, it's something that happens on a trip. Maybe he just comes on to Charlie or comes on to Sally and he's just flirting a little bit. And they're like, oh, whoa, read the room, buddy. We've got Austen and Craig here.
if Whitner and everybody's living at Whitner, but Craig and Austen are great, You're the creep, man.
This triangle cannot be a square. We cannot make this any other shapes. The triangle is it. We're good. We're okay. We understand the triangle.
I think it's interesting, though. I always have this theory of, like, it's Arrested Development where, the year you get on reality television is the year that you stop actually growing. So they can never, they're just kind of in carbonite freezing where you can't really grow up. Like, Craig's trying to grow up, but and I think, he does it in a very sloppy way. But Austen, I think, is still in this really kind of interesting college frat guy. And the show lets him. The show provides him that. And so many people love Austen and are, fans of his. If you get that much adulation, there's not a lot of encouragement to actually grow past that because it's so comfortable, I would imagine, in that is that you can put something out on your social media and get like 1,000 replies of like, keep it up. You look great. Oh my God. So funny. You're never going to try to push to grow past that because you think you will always have that adulation.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense too. And we used to say where we had like some sort of a line graph where Austen was just easing up a little bit, like trying to mature, whereas Craig was just a fucking roller coaster. I mean, he would just come to the top. And obviously there's extenuating circumstances where he's dating somebody that's doing really well. He's all the way up here, then he crashes and burns. This is the first season, I feel like, in like 4 or 5 seasons, which makes it so much more enjoyable. Again, I don't really care what they're doing in their personal lives. But this is the first season in a while where it's just complete and utter chaos. And they're being the guys that we know them to be. Whereas I feel like the last 3-4 seasons, we've seen Craig up here on a pedestal looking down at everybody like, hey, you guys should come up here. And Austen using that as motivation to try to figure some shit out. Once Craig came back down, the guys are just all back to an even playing field. They're all just doing all the same shit that they did 12 years ago. And it's so enjoyable to watch because they're in their late 30s, early 40s. It's like, what? You guys are never going to grow up. This is awesome. I love this. And it could honestly, if this happens for another 3-4 seasons, we might be asking for something different. But right now, it's sort of just like, it's nostalgic. It's like, all right, we're back to where we were. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like simple pleasures in life. And one of my simple pleasures is watching these guys like, fight over each other and make, doofus decisions about women. And I appreciate the small things in life. And so this brings me great joy. And also with Craig, he's one of those guys. It's like we were talking about Meredith in production. It's like everybody kind of infers that Meredith has a lot of issues with production, including Andy Cohen on that reunion. And I think there's a similar thing with Craig because everybody refers to Craig as like, oh, it's your show and da-da-da, and you have attitude or you'll get mad at us. And they all kind of make these like cutting comments. And you really, I interviewed Craig at BravoCon and he was great. He was really nice. And, but then at the very end, I said something like, so what's going on with the war between Summer House and Southern Charm? And I saw his face just kind of subtly change. Where I was like, oh man, like you can tell if you hit the wrong button with Craig, he immediately takes it as, he doesn't like to be made fun of. He doesn't like to be picked on. I read his book and he did get picked on when he was a kid. And I think that might be something that recurs throughout his life. So when he feels like any of those things, he immediately puts walls up. But I think I saw it. And I mean, I got out of that really quickly. I just ran, but
just completely backpedal. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. No, but it is.
Sorry.
Everybody does kind of like throw hints that way, including the cast about Craig. And so, I would love to see the documentary of behind the scenes of Southern Charm.
Yeah, behind the scenes would be so much better too. And again, they even had that discussion at the end when they're sitting at Austin's birthday dinner talking about how they are on camera versus how they are off camera. We're having a lot of those discussions recently where it's like, okay, are you guys, I don't really believe that Austen and Craig are much different off camera. I do think maybe they keep to themselves a little bit more. And then obviously it has to come to the forefront when they're big in a group and sitting down and just discussing things over and over. I do think that changes, but I don't think that they're much different off camera. I think they're still doing the things that they're doing for the most part. And when it comes to that and other shows, like you just mentioned Summer House, that's another one where it's a little bit weird because if you go to Summer House and talk about the Southern Charm Summer House rivalry that's going on, I don't think any of them give a shit anymore. I mean, Paige is out of the house. Kyle might still be holding on to some weird feelings about Craig starting up a hard iced tea business with someone else. That's still probably in the forefront of his mind, but he's not really talking about it as much. They seem to have fully moved on, and they're almost in a completely different level now where they're bringing in new people and we're just like, okay, yeah, I guess we're going to continue to do this. But it's really just in preparation for the new show, which has it still not really gotten a real title? Is it still in the city?
That's what we were in the city. Told. I think they're going to end up going within the city and, it's finished. So my understanding is that they're going to pretty much put it out right after Summer House ends.
Yeah, so I imagine the way that's going to work out is we're going to just watch Kyle and Amanda the whole time in Summer House. No inclination that they're going to break up, and then in the city's going to drop, and we're going to get really into it.
Shooter, no. Did you watch the first episode of this season?
Not yet. Nope.
I'm just saying if this is where they start in this first episode, I mean, I'm there's no surprise at all. Like it is so.
Okay. So then the reports that they were talking about where they were living separately and everything months ago, and they were dropping TikToks every fucking day saying that they live together, but Kyle lives in the doghouse within their apartment.
No, I believe that was all bullshit. They were already living separately. But I will say, I think at this point where it starts up, I think they're still living together, but it's just so obvious that there's so much tension, like, and it's in a way where you're like, ooh, it's still like it's so fun. It's still a great episode. Like I thought it was great. The new people were great already, but it is. And I think that's what I love about Summer House is that we've literally watched these people start a relationship and end a relationship 5 times. And I think you finally feel of like, oh yeah, this is past its expiration date.
Yeah, I feel like we've been thinking that they were past their expiration date for a while, even just as a show. Like we knew for years now, pretty much you could probably carbon date it to Carl becoming sober. Like when Carl finally moved on and started figuring out his life, obviously, Lindsay and Carl, we had to go through all of that. But once that started, it almost opened up another door where it's like, okay, what are we going to do with these aging people on a show that shows them just partying in the Hamptons? And I feel like they dabbled here and there, showing us a little bit more of their city life just to see what we liked. And we really enjoyed it. We loved the little change up. We don't want to just be in the summer house all the time, because most of the time when they go to those bars, they can't film them. So we have to hear about what happened. We have to hear about how the night unfolded, people coming back together, whatever may have happened. But when we get back to the city, it's like, okay, I kind of want to see their lives. And I feel like Bravo just immediately, feelers went up, like, okay, we'll show you more of their lives. This is a good way to graduate. So that way they can keep the summer house standard going and just plug and play new people with some older faces. So they're going to keep people like West and Jesse. I do think Sierra is going to go as soon as Amanda goes. I don't see her hanging around much longer. But from there, you can still plug and play and keep those familiar faces at bay.
I think it's interesting. I mean, the Sierra, I'm kind of up in the air about like her staying or not, because I feel like she gets so many things from the show.
Right.
It's like, so has your career taken off enough that if you do not have the Bravo parachute, are you still going to be flying free? Like Paige, brilliant. I mean, Paige has such a juggernaut with Giggly Squad and had so many opportunities that, my God, what a really smart, wise decision to not be on Summer House this season. And by the way, Summer House, you don't feel the loss of Paige. I mean, it's referred to a couple of times, and I'm not saying that in a negative way, but it's not like, oh, this doesn't work anymore. It still works. It's a summer house and there's people there, and they, but Paige was so brilliant in that, like, Craig, we have to hear him. We have to see him make all of these weird moves with women. We have to hear him talk about being, Paige, all of this stuff. Paige only gets to let us know what she wants us to know. She doesn't have to be filmed in the summer house being like hooking up or being sad. None of that. She gets to keep that all private. But she picked the right moment. I don't know if I think Sierra's getting so many amazing opportunities in the entertainment space. So I think she'll be with the show another 2 seasons.
Okay. I think that totally makes sense, honestly. And with Paige, I think I got crucified immediately because I said we weren't really missing her presence, because we just flashed to a bedroom and she's no longer laying in bed. Like okay,
people
like, what are we doing?
Everywhere. Our hats are held.
Like, I'm okay with that. I feel like the presences that we're going to miss, honestly, the presence that we would miss the most is, weirdly enough, it's Kyle. If Kyle moves on and he's no longer in the summer house, who runs the summer house? He doesn't run it. He thinks he runs it, whatever it may be. But he's always the one that's up until 2 a.m. He's always the one starting a bunch of shit. So they do need to find some sort of role for that. And I guess if him and Amanda broke up, he could stay in the summer house for the rest of his life if he wants to.
He gets the summer house in the divorce, because Amanda doesn't want to be there. I mean, she likes everybody, but like Amanda doesn't want to go out. Amanda doesn't like that, and that's fine. Like, keep her on in the city and let Kyle. I mean, because that would be insane if Amanda came back and we had to see Amanda date again on the summer house, and like
that'd be bizarre.
But also, when it's like you're in your 30s or late 30s or whatever. It's there are. Amanda, and this is a compliment, seems like she still wants to be a somewhat normal person.
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. And I think we're going to see more of that in the city. And we also have Carl's podcast, More Life, which I haven't listened to yet, but first episode dropped, and I guess he's talking to Kyle about the whole thing, just trying to work through.
It was recorded before the Kyle and Amanda divorce.
That's incredible. I wonder if that's a Bravo stipulant, like, hey, no, we got to let this unfold, and we're going to get exclusive rights to this divorce.
Yeah, I think it probably was. Who knows? I don't know what, but yeah, that's out there. And, I'm glad Carl has survived and thrived or whatever, And by the way, if the rumors are true that he's hooking up with Vanita, that does mean the Summer House Southern Charm War is over. That means a truce has been called.
You don't think that Vanita's Helen of Troy and they're going to start the whole thing back up again?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a sense, this is like you can wave this in Craig's face because Vanita doesn't like Craig and be like, haha, I'm friends with the Summer House cast and we talk shit about you all the time, Craig.
Well, I actually thought that for a while there, because there were rumors that West was dating someone. I think it was Mia down in Southern Hospitality, that he was having her out in New York. And I thought that was going to be the new crossover. We're going to get rid of the old guard. There's still going to be a couple people there, but we're going to focus more on the younger people. And we're going to have that crossover with Southern Hospitality and then start the whole thing back up again. Just copy and paste and just see what happens.
Well, didn't Wes? I mean, because didn't Wes hook up with Sally too? Because
Who didn't Sally hook up with? She's all over the place, man.
Pod and kind of inferred that they had hooked up, and I just love that West gets to be on a Bravo world tour of just hooking up with Bravo celebrities of like, hey, Andy told me you have to hook up with me. He's got the best
of both worlds. He's they're sending him to the Super Bowl. Peacock is sending him to the Super Bowl to be their correspondent. And I don't know what they're going to do with all of that. Obviously, they tried. Did you watch the Sunday night football game that they had? Yeah, that was one of my favorite things of the season because it was a terrible game. It didn't really matter to anybody who was watching unless you were fans of those teams. And by the second quarter, they were done. There was only one person that knew
what football. I mean, you had Boston.
It was Boston Rob,
the only person knowing what was happening in the game. And then there was so much awkward silence. There was so much, and then there was so many like talking over each other. I mean, I thought there was elements but see, like I have a weird sense of humor, so there was elements that I found hysterically funny.
For sure,
it's probably not meant to be funny, but I just thought yeah, man, get a bunch of people that don't know anything about football and put them in there on a 3.5 hour game.
Well, it was incredible, too, because by the second quarter, they just abandoned the game pretty much entirely.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? We're not going to go back to the game. I think there was a touchdown. Heather, can you report? I have no idea. I wasn't watching. Luann, come on out. Let's do a little halftime performance and see what happens here.
It's always funny to see who NBC Universal, like, they really champion, and they keep, like, they'll hire Heather Gay for anything. They put Heather Gay in there. Kate Chastain, who I love, actually, they'll put her in anything. Like, you could tell, like, they put Dorinda in so many things. They really do seem to have their favorites. I think Wes Wilson, obviously, another one of their favorites. But it's very interesting to see who they play ball with. I always pay attention to those kind of things. But with the Heather, I was just like, I don't know necessarily who works in this iteration, you know?
I don't understand Heather anyway. And going back to Salt Lake City, when they're talking about production, it's almost like they completely gloss over the fact that Heather pretty much blames production for her black eye. Like that was a huge figurative black eye on the whole show that Heather
Carlos
was just
King
dragging this along.
Carlos King, the podcaster producer, said, like, listen, I was out on Heather the moment she blamed production on a black eye because he was in production, or he is in production. And it's like that, to Salt Lake City's cast when they were like highlighting, production of like, Meredith, don't you speak bad at production. Is that Heather has spoken bad about production. To suggest that they were responsible for Heather's black eye is really just a horrific thing to say about production, and it means this person is not trustworthy. Now, I'm sure Heather has made up for it behind the scenes, but
for sure,
we, the audience, don't know that. Like, we don't know.
No.
It seems like Heather will do anything to save herself or to get some sort of more popularity and success.
Yeah, and the whole production spiel that they went through where Mary Cosby was crying because Heather was talking poorly, or Meredith was talking poorly about like the amount of tears. Like, I feel like that third episode was actually incredibly enjoyable, whereas like the first and second fell flat a little bit. The third one was very funny. We're starting off with Brittany sobbing, crying in her dressing room, coming out just breaking
with a Starbucks
everything.
Cup. You're allowed to bring Starbucks mugs on. I mean, come on, class it up, Brittany. She brings out a Starbucks mug when she's like, "I'm back." Hey, Meredith,
it's not even bedazzled.
Yeah,
like, at least bedazzle that shit. Like, throw it out there. Come on now. But going into like the whole Meredith just going through everything between that and Bronwyn really talking deeply, you could tell. And I love all of these things because we've been talking about it pretty much since Bronwyn and Todd separated. All signs kind of point to Bronwyn knew that this was going to happen and the show was going to drive a wedge between the two of them. They'd either force themselves to figure it out or it would end like it did. But when she's talking about it, she's like, I don't think he knew what this was. I don't think that the show broke us up. It's like, you are using very interesting words right now because this is everything that we think is going on. And then Whitney goes and cries to Justin because her friend, that was a steal my thunder moment because I've been suspecting Whitney and Justin of breaking up on the show as a storyline for a while. I think that that's what she saw.
Yeah, but Shooter, the thing with the thing about the Whitney thing is that, like, she's like, everybody knows we've had troubles. We've had real bad problems. And everybody's shaking their head on stage. Bronwyn's like, I know. And Heather's like shaking her head. Yes. I'm like, where is this on the show? Another mystery. Like, do we all just not give a shit about Whitney where it's like, Whitney, that's fine. We're dealing with this other crap over here. Like, I'd love to know what Whitney's talking about. We have a camera guy following a hug where Justin's like, you know, we're okay, babe. You know, we're okay. And then Whitney says it's the reverse of Bronwyn. So in my head, that means that Whitney is the Todd, which I was like, okay, so Whitney has gone outside of her marriage, even though in the scene with Bronwyn earlier in the season that they said they have some sort of understanding that she goes out, she just needs to make sure she's safe. So was there somebody that crossed that boundary where it got a little too emotional? And if that is the case, why are we not talking about it? Why are we then talking about it at a reunion when we don't know? And I'm like, this seems like a storyline to me. And so my suggestion was, okay, well, we start season 7. If we're going to keep this same crew of ladies, that's where we start. That's where we start. We can tie it in with Bronwyn. And I would love a season of Todd trying to win Bronwyn back. You know, like, come on, baby. Come on.
Come on.
He sends a vat of cherries to her. These are all your cherries, baby. You know, like him being
to find out that he was in New York while she was in New York. She's like, yeah, I don't plan on seeing him. Oh, okay. So this is actually serious. This isn't anything just for show. With Todd, I mean, love him or hate him, I like watching him on screen. He is he's incredibly awkward for a little while, and then he'll say a couple things and you're like, whoa. Where the fuck did that come from?
I love watching
Muzzy is made for TV.
See, that's why, I mean, I will say now that we're talking about it, it is fun to talk about. It's just sometimes not fun to watch in terms of the reunion. But Muzzy's one of those interesting points to bring up that parasocial relationship of, you know, it's like Bronwyn really made me feel bad. Like I went hard on Muzzy. I did memes about Muzzy. I did the whole thing because that's what, as an audience, we're supposed to do. That's how these shows thrive, is for us to have strong opinions on these things. And also, I'm very aware that this is not the entirety of the person. And what I said did happen was that eventually Muzzy was humanized, where by the end of the season, I liked Muzzy. You know, it's like, but at the time, that's how these shows thrive, is to see somebody being completely awful and then you enact your rage or your humor out online or your podcast or anything. So I felt bad because, yeah, that sucks. But Bronwyn, you know that's what's going to happen. Bronwyn's not dumb. And so you know how Muzzy is and you know how Todd is. And just like you told Andy, if I kept this going with Todd, I think the cracks would keep showing, is that you know how they come off. Todd's now, this is the second season, and I was shocked that Todd kept filming this season after last season. So at this point, even though I don't think you're purposely doing it, you aren't protecting him at this point. So you know how the audience already reacts. So I don't know. I thought it was, I don't think she was fully blaming the audience, but I did think the idea was out there, which I'm a feeling person. Like, I don't think you either. Like, none of us want to hurt anybody's feelings, but we do want to be honest if possible.
Yeah, that would definitely help out. And I think that they were pointing the finger at the wrong production. I think they were pointing the finger at the actual production team instead of themselves, because they're self-producing. Like you said, there's enough going on here. Like, you and I can talk about the little things that happens the whole season that should have gotten more screen time and would have been way more interesting and way more fun to watch. But they're always highlighting the stupidest shit. And it's always because Heather's pushing this, Meredith's pushing it, Lisa's in her own little world, she's not doing anything. But they're just trying to show us what they want us to see. And in reality, when we get those glimpses behind the curtain, like a Muzzy, like Whitney and Justin sitting down and Whitney essentially blaming Justin for all of their pitfalls, those things are very interesting. They are very interesting people. Like, I don't think, unlike other housewife shows, I don't think they have a cast problem. I think the cast is good. I would not care to see Brittany come back. I don't think you need her anymore. But I do think that the rest of the cast is very interesting and they have things going on in their lives. They just don't show us. They're so hyper aware of showing us those things.
I agree with you. I don't think they need a cast, but I do think we all have to have a come to Jesus moment where we realize these aren't the Sisters of Salt. These are barely friends at this point. And if they were still friends, then the joke's on them, because there's no way in reality that you would be friends with these people after what they've been put through. Now, you can make the argument of like, we fought in a war together. You know, we fought in a Real Housewives season war together. So that bonds you. War bonds you. But at the same time, there is no trust between these people. It truly, what I do find fascinating is that this isn't just Meredith in Salt Lake. Every show does this, is that Meredith tries to get information behind the scenes. You know, she tries to hide certain things. And that's what these things become. Lisa does it. Kyle Richards does it. Is that this show then becomes what they can hide from the audience. And a lot of these ladies get really good at it. And so then it becomes a struggle with production to try to bring those storylines out. And they use the other cast members, and the other cast members, that's why it becomes off so awkward of like, Heather and Whitney, you're like bullying Meredith at this point. It's because production is trying to pull the story out of Meredith because they see it going on behind the scenes. And so Meredith, very wisely, because it does look like she's getting bullied, but you have to understand there's a show being made. And so that is the hard thing. I want all of these ladies to come back, but I do think Meredith, I hate to say play ball a little because that's been the name of the game from the very beginning, but Meredith does have to let us know. Like there is something going on. I'm not saying a pill, I'm not saying alcohol, and maybe it's over by now, but something this season was happening in her life that she was not able to share. And I think there's those hard conversations you need to have with yourself then of, is this the right venue for me at this point? Like, or is it going to be too is it going to be too hard?
Well, do you think that that's a housewife problem or a Bravo problem? Should they step in and say, you either have to play ball or you're going to have to get demoted or you're going to be gone?
I mean, I really would suspect that conversation has happened at this point with Meredith. I really do at this point. And I'd heard, because, and by the way, hats off to that Shed Media that does the Salt Lake, because they're not 32 flavors. They're not, they do this and they do it really well. And so even though I am a little dismayed at the end of the season where I'm like, how do you make this work next season? They have earned my trust. I'm like, they'll figure it out.
They're one of the few. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think that every good housewife show right now has a great production team behind them. I don't know who does Miami's, but Miami's another one that just like, I have ultimate faith in their production team.
That's Pop.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. Purveyors.
Yeah, I think that is Pop.
Purveyors of Pop. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can always just kind of circle certain shows, even if the cast isn't doing that well, production is just going to raise it to a completely different level than other shows are going to do that. But I do think like what you just said, it's a highlighted issue across all housewives, what they're willing to share versus what they want to share. And then when they're sitting down and looking at this, there's too much prep going into each season. Yeah, obviously you have the storied housewives like Kyle, where it's just going to be the same no matter what. And if somebody ruffles those feathers, whether it's Amanda or someone else, we'll have to see how that plays out. But I feel like even just the off-brand housewives, I mean, like an Emily Simpson comes to mind. You sit down and you're thinking, how's my season going to go? What am I going to share? What do I have going on in my life? I don't want to share this, or this. I'll share this. And it happens to be like her son's eating disorder. It's like, okay, that was a weird choice, but we'll see how this plays out. I feel like there's too much homework going into that, where in reality, it should just be, hey, why don't you guys all just get together and see what the fuck happens? And a lot of times things are going to pop off.
I love that thought, but that is not how some of these production companies work, obviously. And Orange County, to your point, and I think Orange County had a painfully bad last season because of it, because these women are dynamic. You put a camera on them, and sometimes I'm just so entertained just by them talking about the weather. Their characters. I could listen to Lisa Barlow just talk about herself. There is a little bit. It's like a comedian at a certain point. You do want events and stuff, and I do hear what they do. And this is, I think, on record out there, is that they make these they do interviews with the housewives before the season, but they will always go so far as to make you fill out like a 15-page document of like what's going on in all of your relationships in your life, what business, and that's why you have always these goofy businesses, and then they fill it in with like murder mystery dinners and rage rooms and whatever's in like asshole facials and whatever's in but by the way, are we weird, or does everybody watch it through the lens of, because I think the more I've gotten into it over the years, I think now more about production than I do sometimes the story.
I think that's honestly just the dangers of being a podcaster and being some sort of blogging or whatever you might be doing for reality TV. Everybody does that. Like you kind of just go through that whole change in your entire thinking, where there are shows that we don't cover that are reality centric that I'll watch and sit back and just simply enjoy, and I'll laugh at and just do whatever. And then when you get into the Bravo sphere, you get into the other reality TVs that we have to cover and think about, immediately my brain flips on. So I think that's an us problem.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry guys for being weird.
It's okay.
I think I know I'm weird, but I'm like, I always wonder, like, at this point, does everybody think this way? And if you're listening to this podcast or my podcast, you might be like the same way we all are, where like we're studying these shows like the Torah or something.
But it's almost like if you meet somebody out in the wild and you're talking about a show that they're interested in, and they're bringing up just all the surface level stuff, and they'll be like, what do you think happened on that plane with Meredith? And I'll have a 15-minute answer. And they are just perplexed, just staring at me like, what? I didn't even think about any of those things. And I'm like, I've been playing this out in my brain. I actually have it on repeat of what I think actually happened with Meredith on that plane. And in reality, everyone else at home is just sitting there like, well, I guess we'll never find out because nobody had a camera. It's like, wait, why aren't you thinking about what could have happened?
They'll accept it. Like, they'll totally accept it. I'm the one out there still in my mind, just like, I call the FAA at this point. I've
Get the black box off of that plane. Like, I need to know what happened.
And by the way, and then I started questioning myself because I was talking about this on the recap. I was like, I saw Crazy Rich Asians in the theater, and then I had like a crisis of confidence because I was like, to be honest, I can't. To be honest, I don't remember how it ended. I remember like I really enjoyed the movie, but that's over 10 years ago. I don't, I
think she played Maijao with the mother, and then gained acceptance, and they got married. Yeah,
I knew they got married, but I couldn't tell you the final scene. So then I was like, maybe Meredith. Like, I was sitting there thinking,
maybe I fell asleep.
Well, Meredith gaslit me into thinking like, oh, I don't know.
Shit, do I have a pill problem? What the hell's going on here?
I'm just over the mysteries because you damn well know production knows exactly what happened. Like, that's my thing. Is that like, if you're going to put out these mysteries, at least solve one of them. We've had two, like, we don't even have the mystery of like, hey, did we ever find out Todd farting and making out with Lisa Barlow's friend?
No, but it's one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Like, we should know more. Yeah.
Why don't we know? Like, and also, does Todd religiously have a gas problem? Like, what is happening? We have that mystery. Airplane mystery, Justin and Whitney mystery, Mary Cosby Church mystery. Even though that's kind of people are off that at this point. I think Heather Gay, but Heather Gay also drops that she's dating during this reunion.
That pissed me off.
Heather, you better show it next season. If
you have to. If you're going to drop that in the middle of a reunion, you better open the door for next season. So I don't know exactly how that's going to play out, but I think we did a pretty good job of just covering a plethora of shows very quickly. And I don't want to take up all your time here, but
our baby shower is this weekend, so I've literally embarrassing. My mother-in-law's here, and we're getting spray tans after this because I look
nice.
By the way, I just woke up. My hair's a mess. I have bed pillow face. I'm probably pale as a ghost. We're getting spray tanned for the baby shower on Saturday.
Oh, that's gonna look great. Are you gonna do it with enough time to make sure that it settles in, or is it just gonna be pure orange?
I know.
Depends on the vibe you're going for.
I'm going to get canceled by Saturday. Let's just put it that way. I'm going to get canceled. So,
God. Oh, that's funny. Well, do you have anything to plug? Anything you want to just mention?
No, I'm just happy to be here.
Up?
If you, I have a show, but support the Brav Bros. And just like you. I mean, I love talking about these shows, and I love you guys.
Fun.
And I think we are so lucky to be able to do what we do and to have the audiences we have. And, this kind of stuff can be time consuming. I was up till like 2 a.m. doing that Salt Lake recap last night. But, like, God, this beats every job I've ever had in my life. And I hope I get to keep doing this. And it's great to have friends like you guys. Like, we're all... people will always be like, oh, is there competition? But no, there's no competition.
No.
Are you kidding me? The only competition I have is with the negative thoughts in my head about myself. Everything else is like, we all help each other. I mean, this is exactly the dream that I always wanted in terms of collaboration with everybody I've met through doing this,
Hell yeah. Well, you're the best, Ryan. Everybody go listen to Ryan's show, Ryan Bailey. Follow him on socials.
Screw Steel.
Yeah, we don't even know where Steel is. If Steel's dead in a ditch somewhere, I'm going to feel bad about this. But at the same time, no, it's okay. He'll be all right. We'll figure it out. But that's all we got here. Thanks for listening. Brav Bros are out of here. Ryan Bailey's out of here.
I'm a bro too.
Yes, you are.